Two brothers, a crypto fund, and a $3.6 billion disappearance. It sounds like the plot of a Hollywood blockbuster, but for thousands of investors, this was a devastating reality. This is the story of Africrypt, a South African investment firm that promised the moon and then vanished into the digital ether, leaving behind a trail of broken promises and a financial crater worth billions. It's a modern-day heist, executed not with guns and masks, but with code and deception. In 2019, the world of cryptocurrency was a fever dream of soaring values and overnight millionaires. Bitcoin was climbing, and a new generation of digital prospectors was eager to stake their claim. It was in this electric atmosphere that two young brothers from Johannesburg, Amir and Ray's Kaji, stepped onto the stage. They were just 17 and 20 years old, respectively, but they spoke the language of the future. They founded Africrypt, a cryptocurrency investment firm that marketed itself as a golden ticket. Their pitch was intoxicatingly simple: entrust us with your Bitcoin, and our proprietary AI-powered trading bot will generate astronomical returns, sometimes as high as 10% a day. To a world hungry for high yields, this was an irresistible siren song. Initial investors reported incredible profits, and word of mouth spread like wildfire. Friends told friends, family members pooled their life savings, and a diverse group of clients from seasoned financiers to everyday people flocked to Africrypt. They were sold a vision of effortless wealth, a passive income stream managed by what the Kaji brothers claimed was cutting-edge technology. The firm's polished website and confident marketing materials projected an image of sophistication and security. For a while, the dream seemed real. Clients saw their account balances swell, and the Kajis became minor celebrities in the local crypto scene. The Wunderkinds who had cracked the code. Then, on April 13, 2021, the music stopped. An email landed in the inboxes of every Africrypt investor. It was a message from Amir Kagi, and its contents were chilling. The firm, he claimed, had been the victim of a catastrophic hack. Their systems had been compromised, and a significant portion of client funds' wallets, accounts, everything had been siphoned off. But it was the next part of the email that sent a wave of panic through their client base. The brothers urged investors not to report the incident to law enforcement or lawyers. Doing so, they warned, would only slow down the recovery process. They insisted they were handling it internally and would do everything in their power to retrieve the stolen assets. This bizarre request was the first major red flag. Why would a legitimate company, the victim of a massive theft, actively discourage its clients from seeking legal recourse? For many, the plea felt less like a strategic decision and more like a stall tactic. Suspicions quickly mounted. When investors tried to contact the Kaji brothers for clarification, they were met with silence. Their phone numbers were disconnected. Their offices were empty. The two brilliant young entrepreneurs who had promised a new era of wealth had quite simply vanished. As the days turned into weeks, the terrifying truth began to dawn on the investors. This wasn't just a hack. The $3.6 billion in Bitcoin they had entrusted to Africrypt was gone, and so were the people in charge. The investors, left with nothing but screenshots of their once flourishing digital accounts, banded together. A Cape Town-based law firm, Hancom Attorneys, was hired to represent a group of them and began the arduous task of untangling the web. Their initial findings were damning. It quickly became apparent that the funds hadn't just been stolen by some anonymous cybercriminal. The digital breadcrumbs led directly back to the Kajis themselves. Investigators discovered a complex and deliberate money laundering operation. 69,000 Bitcoin, which at its peak value was worth over $4 billion, had not been sitting idle. Months before the alleged hack, the funds had been systematically moved from the investors' pooled accounts. They were channeled through a labyrinth of digital services designed to obscure their origin and destination. The Bitcoin was passed through mixers and tumblers, tools in the SGOs, and the STUS. Crypto world that jumbled transactions from multiple sources to make them nearly impossible to trace. From there, the money was funneled into a series of large, often unregulated offshore exchanges, effectively washing it clean of its connection to Africrypt. This wasn't the work of a panicked victim trying to recover funds. It was the meticulous execution of a pre-planned exit. The scale of the disappearance was so immense that it drew international attention. Interpol, the global policing agency, issued a red notice for Amir and Ray's KG, a request to law enforcement worldwide to locate and provisionally arrest them pending extradition. The global manhunt was on. The South African financial regulator, the FSCA, also launched its own investigation. But it was hampered by the country's legal gray area concerning cryptocurrency. At the time, crypto assets were not legally defined as financial products, limiting the regulator's jurisdiction and power to intervene. Kajis had exploited a loophole, operating in a wild west where the sheriffs had their hands tied. Rumors swirled about the brothers' whereabouts. Were they hiding in the United Kingdom? Had they fled to Russia? The trail went cold. For months, they were ghosts, their digital footprints erased, their physical location a mystery. Then, in a shocking twist, Ray's Kaji surfaced. He granted an interview to the Wall Street Journal, denying all allegations of a scam. He painted a completely different picture, one where he and his brother were the true victims, forced into hiding by threats from shadowy international crime syndicates. He claimed the amount of missing Bitcoin was vastly exaggerated and that they were working to repay their clients. But his story was riddled with inconsistencies and offered little comfort to those who had lost everything. The promised repayments never materialized. The Africrypt saga stands as a monumental case study in the modern exit scam. This is a new breed of fraud. It's perfectly tailored for the digital age, where the complex and often opaque language of technology is used to legitimize a classic con. The model is brutally effective. Founders create a compelling narrative around a revolutionary piece of technology, in this case, an AI trading bot that likely never existed. They leverage the hype and FOMO, fear of missing out, prevalent in speculative markets to attract a flood of capital. They build a facade of success, paying out early investors with money from new ones. A textbook Ponzi scheme dressed in blockchain terminology. Finally, when the pool of money is large enough, they engineer a catastrophic event, a hack, a system failure, a regulatory shutdown, as a pretext for their disappearance. They weaponize the very complexity of the technology they promoted. Knowing that tracing assets through mixers and decentralized exchanges is a Herculean task, often beyond the capabilities of average investors and even some law enforcement agencies, what we are witnessing is not a failure of technology, but a failure of trust, expertly manipulated by those who understand that, in the gold rush for digital wealth, many are willing to suspend disbelief. The Vanishing Traders of Africrypt didn't just steal billions in Bitcoin, they stole the future their clients had bet on, leaving behind a chilling lesson in the new digital frontier. The oldest scams often wear the most futuristic masks.